So to start with our first amazing panel, building towards a future-ready Indian insurance industry by using technology and data, we will start with this power-packed panel discussion bringing together an amazing group of insurers, reinsurers, insurtechs, and policymakers all on a single dais. We'll talk about building towards a future-ready Indian insurance industry by using tech and data. So please join me in welcoming today on the stage Mr. G. Srinivasan, MD and CEO of Galaxy Health Insurance. I'll request you, sir, to please step up on the dais. Mr. Amitabha Ray, CEO of Swiss Re India. Mr. Anand Prabhudesai, co-founder of Turtlemint. And Mr. Vaibhav Singh, MD, Visit Health Private Limited. The session will be moderated by our very talented Vivek Mandhata, Managing Director and Partner, BCG. Requesting our esteemed guests to please grace the stage now with their presence.
Morning, everyone. Amazing to be here. I'm one of those people who raised my hand when you asked, second time at IIA. Always gets bigger. Pleasure to see everyone in the room today. I'm also very proud of the panel that we have here because it's a very good mix of different type of players in the insurance industry. We've got reinsurance, insurance, insurtechs, all facets represented on the stage, and someone who looks at it outside, neutrally at the industry, trying to get a good conversation going. The topic today was about how do we get the insurance industry to be future ready, right? What will it take? And it's quite a vast topic. So I'll probably ask all my fellow members of the panel to first probably define this in terms of how do you define future ready, right? I mean, that itself could be very diverse. So I'd like to hear all of your views on what does it mean for the Indian insurance industry to be future ready. Maybe we'll start with you, Mr. Srinivasan, and then go around.
Thank you very much, Vivek. First of all, my compliments to the India Insurtech Association for holding a program of this nature on the election day in Maharashtra. I think it shows their confidence in getting members, and I'm really happy to see so many of you sitting here to be part of this great event. Coming to your question, what do you mean by future ready for the insurance sector? To me, there are two things which are very important as a goal. One is, how do we make everyone in India adequately and fully insured? Second, how do we make sure that the customers get the benefits in a very nice and hassle-free manner? I think these are two objectives. I think this is what we need to really focus as we speak of being future ready. To do this, I think technology will be a great enabler. Technology cannot be an end by itself. It has to be an enabler. Technology can really help in reaching out to customers in a country like India, which is geographically so big. I think we need to reach out to customers not only in rural areas, but even in urban areas. There are many in urban areas who are still not touched. Engaging with customers, is the insurance industry just going to connect with the customer only at the time of taking a policy or at the time of a claim? Is there any way whereby the industry can be constantly engaged with customers? I think this can be done through technology. Then ensuring a great customer experience. And finally, improving the efficiency of the insurance industry in terms of using some of those technology tools in bringing in more analytical mindset in decision making and generally contributing well to reducing cost and bringing in efficiency in customer service. So I think this is how I would look at the whole concept of future ready as far as the insurance sector is concerned.
Lovely. Amitabha, do you want to weigh in?
First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here for the second time. And, it's growing, so my congratulations to everyone for this. If we go with the Viksit Bharat theme of 2047 and insurance for all, then we're looking at something beyond the scale. Because today we are at 3 lakh crore in industry in the non-life side, which is where I'm from. And we are expecting it to become 7 or 8 lakh crores in about 7 or 10. But by 2047, it's like going to be 5, 7 times. Now, this in unprecedented scale at which this needs to happen needs a paradigm shift, right? And government can push only so much, with their schemes on the agriculture sector, on the health sector and everything. Ultimately, it's a question of how this industry is going to create demand and how the industry is going to supply the demand, as we have been speaking about for some time, which means increasing the penetration. Now, on the demand side, obviously, insurance is a product which is not as attractive as the iPhone, right? How do we make insurance either attractive or becoming so accessible that it's a hygiene factor? We need a cultural shift in which I think fintech and insurtech can play a huge role in kind of creating the demand where it's very transparent to an individual or a corporation. Where do they sit in the risk? Where does their risk sit? As an individual, we are exposed to many things. And then we are worried that we have to buy a lot of insurance policies for PA, for health, this, that. But where is my riskiness? And where is the transparency of that with regard to the price? If we can make people aware about that, and there fintech has a huge role to play, I feel, making things much more transparent. On the demand side, I think we can increase the demand for insurance and increase penetration. On the supply side, it's about efficiency. It's about delivering what the insurance industry promises, which is paying the claims on time. I think the time it takes, of course, for the health side, we have a cashless system now, but still there is quite a bit of delays in many 30–40% of the cases are still not cashless. So there's a need to change that and build the trust from that angle. So the future readiness of the industry depends on how well we can scale up and how well we can become efficient, but how well we can also put trust in the system, that insurance becomes almost a byword for everybody managing their own or corporate risk, right? That's what I would start with. We can develop further.
Anand?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me here. And again, like every other panelist has said, congratulations to IIA for organizing such a wonderful and huge event. I remember before the 3 events that were mentioned, there was one in 2020 as well, which happened over a Zoom call. And from there, where probably with 110 the attendance to this, sitting here in this wonderful venue, it's great progress from IIA and the team. And they've sort of almost single-handedly brought us to this stage. Without this, there would not have been much of an Insurtech ecosystem even in India, and kudos to that. So coming to your question about the future, I think both the panelists have talked about it. The insurance for all by 2047 is kind of the North Star, and we are all excited and energized by that goal. It's a worthy goal for a country of our size and for the development that we are seeing. And I see, basically 2 axes in which we need to do work. One is efficiency. I mean, we're still not a very affluent country, and so we need to be able to deliver insurance services to our population, to our countrymen at the least possible cost, which means, how good we are at doing many of the processes, but also taking out fraud and wastages from the system. And then the other axis is innovation. We are a very large country, very diverse, lots of different things happening. And innovation is needed in terms of products, in terms of underwriting, in terms of how we think about insurance, how it gets delivered, how it becomes more friendlier. It's still not a product that people are buying on their own. So that's really, also very important. If you're able to work on both the innovation and the efficiency axis, I think there's a lot we can do. And to get there, I feel it is about creating capabilities. Uh, we are one of the leading startup ecosystems in the Insurtech world. I mean, we've also traveled to other countries and other markets, actually look up to India. But there is still a long way for us to go in terms of how the majority of our tech, insurtech, and insurance ecosystem in coming together to solve these problems. And for that, certain capabilities have to be created both at the tech level as well as human capabilities in other aspects, be it in operations, sales, and so on. And so those are things that we will have to work on to be future ready, is what I would say.
Vaibhav, you have a tough act.
I think by the time it came to me, all the questions and all the points have been already talked about. But thank you so much for having me on this panel. And to me, if I talk about how do we see as, when we are ready for the future, when we talk about insurance penetration, I think the most important fact is the mindset. Today I think we need to have more of an analytical mindset with a very sticky network. So once you combine these two, that is where you can do a lot of customizations, you can do a lot of personalization. As Anand mentioned, that India is a very diverse country and we really can't have one-size-fits-all product. So it makes it kind of a boring. So today the traditional insurance is not something which is a pull product. It's more of a push product which is being talked about, and that's the perception we have. So the more collaboration we can have within the ecosystem, within the stakeholders, and that's when we'll be probably in a state where we'll be utilizing each other capabilities. So there is a person there is a, I would say, category of companies which are responsible for distribution, then there are categories of people which are responsible for underwriting, there are categories of companies which are responsible for bringing the technology side of it. If the collaboration can happen in a very useful way, that is where we all will be able to use each other's capabilities, and then it will have a very snowball effect. So I believe analytics combined with a sticky network and collaboration is where we'll be future ready for a much better penetration.
I heard all of you mention penetration as a common theme underlying, right? And different means to the end. And specifically, the topic started moving a little towards the health insurance space. So I'll just double click on that a little bit. Look, we had COVID, which probably was a great shake-up of awareness of what extremes we can get impacted by. But even after that, there is still a large gap in penetration, right? And I think, Amitabha, you mentioned the awareness of risk in the consumer side. But beyond that, what do you think are the factors that are still resisting that penetration move, right? So what's the barriers today that we have? And I think I'll make it a two-part question so that it can be rich in terms of what you guys contribute. In terms of what can therefore technology and data specifically do in breaking those barriers as we go along, right? I think it'll be useful for us to hear some of those thoughts from all of you. Maybe I'll flip the order, Vaibhav. I'll start with you this time, since last time you felt it was all spoken much.
No, so, it's a combination of what we are talking about. So when we talk about what is the barrier right now, so the barrier one of the critical things which I said is about there is a very limited product understanding in the market. And if you talk about someone like me, probably I'm more interested about having more of my primary healthcare needs being covered. I don't want to see insurance only for my bad days. What about my normal days? Is there any protection? Is there anything which I can talk about? So that's something which today I believe is missing. And the more we are talking about just the serious part of the insurance, we're making it more boring. And that's where a lot of youth or the young crowd are not very much getting attracted towards it. So as Amitabha also said, the government can do only much. It's more about us, that how we can use the data very well in terms of how we can assist the insurers so that they can come up with a very customized, very bite-sized product, something which can really make me also excited about talking about insurance and how the delivery of that happens. So today I'm very much accustomed with using all the newish platforms for any of my day-to-day needs. But when it comes to insurance, probably I'm still not very happy with where I'm experiencing and what I'm experiencing. So you have to see me as not just a guy who's looking at health benefits or an insurance, but what is generally happening in my other life and how it can be how any product which is being offered is at least at par of what my current habit is. So bringing that will really help us in getting this barrier out.
Anand?
I think I totally agree with Vaibhav. I think the problem is people don't see the value. Once they start to see the value, they see the value in iPhone, they're ready to spend that kind of money, right? And we've seen that over and over again with consumer. It has to be a consumer interest product. It's not there today. And once the value is seen, once it becomes a consumable product and not something I use or when I really don't want that event to happen, it can become a lot more interesting. And I think along with the innovation around it, some of the regulatory unlock also needs to happen to be able to encourage something like this. And we also need to be able to create confidence in capacity providers that this kind of innovation, and which means we need to be able to supply them with the data and the intelligence to be able to underwrite something which is a lot more creative than what we see today. So that requires, different way of collecting data, being able to use technology more, so we can underwrite a lot more consumer-friendly and consumer-attractive products.
There are a couple of things. After COVID, we haven't had it picked up, or during COVID, it picked up, and then it actually is stable. So we're not able to penetrate a lot of people who can probably afford, incomes have gone down. One of the things, of course, you keep seeing is that people complain about the price of the product, right? And then, of course, young people do not feel that they're going to get sick, and they delay the purchase, which actually ends up making the attachment, when they attach the product, they're at a very high price. Yeah. But on a lifetime basis, if you look, maybe if they started earlier, would have paid. So there needs to be some incentivization, further incentivization for a younger set of people to join the group, which will help the entire group, right? So that's where tech, fintech, with more, let's say, intervention, more knowledge sharing, and awareness building would help from that side. It's also a little bit about health care inflation, which is creeping into the system. So every year, you don't see, even if you're having a good health for 5 years, your policy price keeps increasing because the health inflation is a serious problem. So that's something that the system has to, at some point in time, address. Because today, if I'm a young person, which I'm not, I would say, shall I spend that 20,000 or 15,000 and invest and make it grow to 20 lakhs in 20 years or something? It's like, or should I just keep putting it and hope nothing, if something happens, I'll get 10, 20 lakhs back at the. I think that mindset of comparing the two needs to change also a lot, right? Because the opportunity cost, if somebody is sick and not able to work, is pretty high, right? So, and all these things we need to address very differently. If it has to be part of your financial planning process, thinking as a person, what downside I'm protecting and what's the opportunity cost lost if I didn't have insurance. I don't think we're thinking through that very well, right? And eventually, as you said, we have to reward people who are having good health, right? They don't need to see, even with good health, the prices keep creeping up. So we address some fundamental issues and questions, maybe we'll definitely be able to increase penetration. The other last part is, if there's we can break down the product into some parts which is cheaper, but which people can still buy, for a selected number of kind of diseases or morbidity that you don't have to buy the entire set of like hospitalization for everything, but only for a certain part, and maybe that makes it so even product innovation highly required in this space to get people into the system. And then
so the issue of why people are not buying policies has been discussed, time and again. So the simple reason is customers don't see value. That's why they're not buying. I think that's a very simple reason. So why do they not see value in insurance? I think there are a couple of reasons. One is they don't understand insurance. They don't understand the insurance products. There's so much complexity in the insurance products. I think that has not changed. I mean, it's been the case 20 years back. Even today, it continues, despite clarion calls for simplification of products. So that's one challenge. So how do we resolve this? One is, of course, by making the product simple, which the insurers always find it difficult. The other way of doing it is, how do we explain the product to the customers? Do our people who are selling insurance, whether it's agents or intermediaries, do they take the trouble of explaining to the customers what the product really is so that there is no misunderstanding when a claim happens? Since you mentioned health, the biggest pain point today in health is the customers are not very happy with the claims they get. One is they're not happy with the process of getting claims, the time it takes, and also the procedure. And they don't get the full claim. They always get part of the claim, and which they feel they've been taken for a ride by the insurance companies because they have not been properly told what the policy is, what it covers, what it doesn't cover, to what extent it is going to provide coverage. So I think reducing complexity of products and making our intermediary distribution channel, very professional and so that they're more open and transparent, not just look at closing sales at the first minute, is very, very important if we have to carry trust to the customers. Because, I've heard people saying, insurance is good at the time of, buying a policy. I'm treated like a king, but when it comes to claims, I don't see any one of you. I think this is a problem which the industry is aware of it, and we need to solve this. Otherwise, people are still not going to trust insurance. The second, on the bite-sized products, I have a different view. In a market where customers don't understand insurance, just selling, small ticket policies with limited covers adds to the problem because the customer thinks he has bought a, very comprehensive health insurance scheme. And then, when a real situation emerges, he finds that there's no cover in the policy. There is a problem. So I think bite-sized products has to be in addition to, proper covers, which are very fundamental in providing a wholesome coverage. Then you can always top it up with other, smaller covers. So technology has to play an important role. But, I really see at this point of time, pure technology, the pure digital sales is just about 2%. So a phygital model wherein you have a human face completely supported, enabled by technology is probably the model, at least for the next 10 years in the Indian market. And technology has to play a very important role in transparency. Making people understand. It should not reduce the level of transparency. So that's my point. So if that can be done, then really, we can solve this problem. Finally, coming to the issue of affordability. Affordability is a serious issue. In a country where, you may say 20% is below poverty line, but the next 60% is just little above poverty line. And by global standards, you can also call them as below poverty line. So for them, insurance becomes lower in their order of priorities. So we need to find a way of, reducing the insurance cost, which of course can happen only if the healthcare cost comes down. So how can insurers and the providers find ways of reducing healthcare cost is a serious point. And without handling that, if we keep on increasing the health insurance premiums, we can't really blame that customers are not buying insurance.
One thing that we also talk about in the report that we will be launching today is about the collaboration between Insurtechs and insurers, and more specifically beyond the realm of distribution, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of traction in the distribution space, right? But going beyond that, all of you spoke about product, spoke about efficiency. Is there a gap that can be further filled and made better in terms of how insurtechs bring value to insurers and the ecosystem in terms of going beyond distribution? And maybe Anand, we may start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think if we look at collaboration between insurance companies and insurtechs, we are still not there yet. I mean, what would be, and I keep thinking about what would be the signs of a mature collaboration ecosystem. For example, we should have seen insurers acquiring many of the insurtechs, right? For example, insurance companies, I don't think, I have not come across any actually, which has a strategic BD or an investment team that is actively looking at insurtechs. And there may be this happening, but at least, it's not yet widespread, at least in the India context, versus you look at more developed markets where insurance companies are looking at, technology and acquisition of IP as an important factor in their growth and in their competitive advantage. So I think it's, it's as much as insurers' responsibility as well as, I think, insurtechs as well. So an insurtech today that is trying to bring efficiency only, for example, which may be saving in cost of people, for example, right? May not be very competitive, may not be a very strong value proposition for an insurer to look at in a market like India where labor costs are lower. And therefore, insurtechs also need to think about what is the driver of value in a market like India, which may have to be around experience than just cost saving, right? And so I think that is starting to happen now. I mean, we are much better than where we were 10 years ago when we started our journey. But there is still, that maturity, the signs of the maturity of that ecosystem are still not there, but hopefully we'll start to see that also happening over the next 4 or 5 years.
Mr. Srinivasan, you're on the other side. You've been on the insurer side and you've seen a lot of insurtechs evolve. How would you look at that, and what do you see as the pathway forward on that collaboration and innovation beyond distribution?
Yeah, so I think the last few years, the development of insurtechs has been phenomenal in our market. They've really done a great job in revolutionizing the way insurance is done. So the question is, how they are embraced by the insurance sector, especially insurers. If you really look at the insurtechs, of course, the term insurtech itself, sometimes, today everyone calls himself an insurtech. Everyone with a laptop calls himself an insurtech. So I'm really not sure. So I think we need to define that term in a much better manner. The insurtechs who are successful in the Indian market are all distributors. I'm not going to mention names, of course. Turtlemint is here. Though, see, they are okay. I mean, they are needed and they have done a fantastic job in really revolutionizing the way insurance is sold. But we also need insurtechs who will contribute in the underwriting process through artificial intelligence or machine learning, or in claims through helping in fraud analytics, which can help in the industry in saving money and reducing the insurance premiums. Also in the operations. I think there are insurtechs, but it's unfortunately a true statement that insurers have not embraced them fully. They have not been encouraged to a large extent. I basically feel that insurance industry cannot be a technology industry. There's no need to build a big team inside the insurance industry. I think we need to depend on these insurtechs. We need to encourage them. We need to make them, remunerate them well. Make sure that they develop in a big way so that they can contribute to all the insurance companies. Because there's so much can be done in terms of improving the underwriting claims processes, which can add a lot of value to the insurance companies. Hopefully this should happen, and hopefully programs like this, which brings insurers and insurtechs together, will make that happen in the coming years.
This is a very interesting discussion and I can keep it going, but I'm also conscious of time and like to give the group here also an opportunity to ask questions, if any, to the panel.
When you talk about the premium being increasing because of the medical inflation, so do you think the fraud management can be helpful when it comes to premium downsizing? Because when I was talking with some insurer guy, he mentioned about more than 80% being cashless pan-India level. But when you just turn to a state, I don't want to name that state, it's like 50-50, 50% reimbursement, 50% cashless. So you can catch what is the 50% about. Do you understand? Yeah. Any comments, please?
No, clearly fraud mitigation is a very, very important.
Same stays with the motor. I'm so sorry, but health,
Yeah.
motor, each and everything.
Everywhere. So, not talking only of health. Of course, it's more in health. So, fraud mitigation is very, very critical for the insurance industry, and the insurance industry would really love to have solutions, technology solutions, which can help them in fraud mitigation. Because today, I mean, there are anecdotal numbers. Nobody knows what is the extent of fraud. 15%, 20%. So, if we can, may not be able to eradicate it, we can reduce it substantially. The benefit of this can really go to the consumers in terms of reduction in premium. So this is something very, very important. I agree with you, the fraud patterns vary depending upon geographical locations as well, unfortunately. Cashless is still 65%, despite the regulator telling all the insurers, make it 100%. Opening up cashless to any hospital in the country, it's still around 65. It hasn't moved much. It has moved a little bit. Maybe if we can go to 100%, to a large extent, we will have control over what we are paying. But today it's a big issue, and the challenge is more in reimbursement claims, which is still a substantial part of health insurance claims, and it's there in motor as well. So I think we have to do something. This is where I think Insurtech can really contribute to the insurance sector.
That's true. Thank you.
Hi, morning. Narendra here from IBI. My question is, on the health side, we are talking about medical inflation hitting year on year. So can technology play a role in standardizing pricing across provider network and then helping to reduce cost? Of course, that's a very difficult commercial conversation with the hospitals who do not want to reduce pricing and everything. But is there a scope for the panel to answer? And another, just an anecdote over here. Zerodha added only 5 employees in 4 years, and they built their revenues and turnovers. So can we see something like that coming in the insurer space? Because insurance companies can keep their costs low, and that's how the penetration and growth. Just a thought.
First one, Vaibhav, you deal with a lot of service providers as well, right? I mean, so do you want to take the first question on?
So in India, when we talk about the diversity, it's next to impossible to answer in yes and no, that will all the partners agree for a standard pricing? Will an Apollo agree at a pricing what I'm getting in a tier 3 city from a hospital, or is there going to be parity? I don't think so. That's really going to be possible unless until we get into a Kaiser model where the premium is fixed and then the entire management is being done by the hospital itself, like what recently Narayana did. So when we have models like Narayana, which if that continues to grow, that is the only place where you can have and say that irrespective of the center I go in, because all these centers are owned by the single company, single family office, or that for that matter. So to answer in yes and no, I don't think so that's going to be possible unless until we have a Kaiser model going very strong in India, or recent companies. There are also companies who are doing a subscription model. I don't know how good it is or whether it's, I won't comment on that. But if these are the two things are something which will get accepted, that is where we can have a standardized pricing.
Anand or Amitabha, any thoughts on the second part? Can there be a Zerodha in insurance?
Yeah. So I think, in the case of Zerodha, for example, it's a fully digital product. And one could say insurance also at the time of purchase is a fully digital product. But of course, it's far more complex, right? I mean, in the case of stock you're buying, it's just a price and a quantity. And anybody can, after their KYC is done, go ahead and do it. Whereas insurance is an underwritten product. And therefore, somebody has to accept you as a risk, right? And I think that fundamentally that adds the complexity in the whole transaction processing. And there's a whole set of people now involved in making sure that that transaction goes through, it is kosher, whatever. And a lot of that, in my opinion, can be digitized. and with AI and some of these things, maybe even automate it to a large extent so that we can have quick decision making and much better experience also, as well as much more efficiency. But it's much more harder to do, and also the technology, some of it which are really needed to make it happen, I think are only now starting to appear with the advent of AI and some of the development that have happened in terms of model and data processing. So possibly, at some point we are all pushing to that future because it can really bring down the cost for the end customer. It's, I feel a lot of ray of hope with the current technology developments that it may be possible now very soon in our lifetimes.
So the ideal insurance company will be you go to the space, buy a product digitally, and at the time of the claims, you just phone digital. And just say, I'm in this hospital. Everything is done in the background, and so we could run a company like that, and with almost everything artificially intelligent and underwritten, and constant underwriting and constant updating of prices, etc., based on experience. So those things, models are possible even today, I feel, with technology. But I feel that's not going to be the ideal world. Insurance, if the sir will actually acknowledge this, half the time the claims fall in a space where it's not clear whether the policy will respond or not. And however you can make your artificially intelligent claims handler at the background, at the time of settlement of a claim, you need to be having some empathy, some understanding, and and so there will never, in my view, be a situation where you will have no employees and running a company. But definitely, we could be highly efficient to the order of N, right? It's not about, insurance is not a product like a stock where you buy it and, the loss is yours if you made a bad decision, right? You really, if you don't get the claim, you're aggrieved, right? And that's where the insurance company's partnership with you over the years comes into fore, right? Things which are not black and white still have a chance to be, paid, right?
Zerodha insurance is right now there in many of the Western markets. You go to an insurance company, there'll be hardly 10 employees. You go to a broker's office, there'll be 1,000 employees. So we'll also see in the Indian market, empowered brokers, managing general agents. When a lot of that load is taken by intermediaries, the insurance companies will just take the risk. Of course, technology can contribute a lot in reducing the manpower. Now, coming to the question, the first part of the question, I thought I'll just add to what my colleague just mentioned. The collaboration between the providers and insurers is very, very important. So the GI Council is working on, can the whole industry negotiate with hospitals? We are talking of categorizing hospitals, not that an Apollo will be treated on par with a small hospital in a small town. But can the whole industry negotiate? It's not only for rates, but also for customer service. See, ultimately the customer is the, is a common customer of both the hospital as well as the insurance company. So there is actually a community of interest. It's just that, we have not been able to build that, relationship in a proper manner. So that will go a long way in customer getting a great service, not being unnecessarily treated, and also reducing the cost of healthcare and insurance premium. I think that's something the GI Council, the industry is trying. Hopefully it succeeds. I think we need to make that a success in the interest of the market.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being a great audience and a great panel. I think the themes of penetration naturally came up, but I love the fact that we spoke about technology and empathy in the same tone, right? I mean, we can't lose sight of the fact that an insurance company has to be empathetic to the customer situation through the life cycle. So look forward to India moving towards the direction we all are working towards. Thank you.
Thank you.